The mysterious signal. The sky was clear that morning, not a cloud in sight, but something strange was happening. The world's top scientists were suddenly receiving signals from the stars. At first, it was a faint hum, barely noticeable. Then, over the next few hours, it grew louder. Strange patterns, cryptic and unfamiliar, filled the airways. The signals came from somewhere deep in space, far beyond Earth's reach. But the world had heard nothing like this before. For the past 4,000 years, humanity had looked up at the stars and seen only silence. No messages, no visitors, just the cold, empty void. And now, out of nowhere, this. Governments around the world scrambled to understand what was happening. The signals were unlike anything they had ever encountered. They weren't random noise or natural radio waves. These were intelligent, deliberate transmissions, but no one could decode them. Dr. Emily Harper, a leading scientist at the United Nations Space Communications Center, stared at the glowing screen in front of her. The code was complex, shifting, and changing. It seemed almost alive. Every attempt to crack it was met with failure. "What is this?" she whispered to herself. Around her, panic was beginning to build. It wasn't just the signals that were troubling. There was something about their rhythm that suggested something more. Emily's heart raced. Something was coming. Across the globe, other nations were making similar discoveries. Russia, China, and the United States each had their own team of scientists working around the clock. But the signals were growing stronger and more frequent. They seemed to be pointing directly toward Earth. The signals were becoming a countdown. In Washington, D.C., President Rachel Turner was in a meeting with her top advisors. The news had spread quickly. People were starting to panic. Rumors of alien invaders flooded the media. Everyone wanted answers, but the truth was, no one had them. "Are we sure this is a threat?" President Turner asked. She wasn't just asking the question out of curiosity. She needed to prepare her people for whatever was coming. General Thomas Drake, the head of the United States military, stepped forward. "Madam President, it's too soon to say. But the signals, they're not just random. We believe something or someone is coming. And if they're coming, they may not be friendly." Emily Harper had seen the same reports. She had worked her entire career to understand space communication. But this was different. She felt it deep in her gut. These signals weren't meant to help. They were meant to warn. But warn of what? And why now, after all this time? A week passed, and the signals didn't stop. They only grew stronger. And then, without warning, Earth's satellite systems picked up something else. An object, no, a fleet, was headed directly toward Earth. There was no mistaking it. The object was massive, too large to be a single ship. Thousands of ships were moving toward Earth at unimaginable speed. "We're not alone," Emily said quietly, standing before the world's top scientists in the command center. The truth was out now. The aliens were coming, and they were coming fast. The fleet was enormous, far larger than anything Earth had ever built. It was moving steadily across the galaxy, and its trajectory was unmistakable. The experts tried to calculate its arrival time, but the numbers didn't make sense. The fleet had covered light years of space in mere weeks. It was as if they had been waiting for the right moment to strike. In the command center, Emily's team worked furiously to decode the final signal. This time, there was a pattern that stood out: coordinates. Not just random numbers, but a precise location. Earth. "This isn't a coincidence," Emily said, her voice tight. "They're coming here, to us." Meanwhile, on the streets of cities all around the world, fear began to spread. People glued their eyes to the news. Every channel was filled with the same terrifying message: the fleet is coming. Social media exploded with posts, speculations, and fear. What did this mean for Earth? Were we about to be invaded? Would humanity survive? In a remote military base in Nevada, General Drake stood looking at the giant screen in front of him. The fleet was growing closer. His mind raced through the possibilities. Could they fight back? Could Earth's defenses stop such an advanced force? He didn't know. But one thing was certain, they had no choice but to try. President Turner made the decision to form a coalition of the world's greatest minds. She called it the Last Stand. Nations would unite, setting aside differences, to come up with a plan to stop the alien fleet. They had to prepare, and they had to prepare fast. But one question echoed in everyone's mind. Could humans even fight against such a powerful force? The aliens had technology beyond anything Earth had ever seen. How could humanity stand a chance? In the depths of space, the alien fleet continued its journey toward Earth. Its leaders watched from afar, observing the human responses. The time had come to test humanity. They had waited 4,000 years for this moment. Back on Earth, Emily was hard at work, analyzing every bit of the alien transmissions. There had to be something they could use. Maybe, just maybe, the aliens were not as invincible as they seemed. There was one clue in the signals that made her think. They want us to respond. The humans weren't just being observed. They were being tested. And maybe, just maybe, Earth had a plan of its own. The countdown had begun. The alien fleet was nearly here. And humanity's survival, its very future, depended on whether they could figure out what to do before it was too late. As the sky darkened with the first signs of the alien fleet, everyone knew one thing: the world would never be the same again. Preparing for the unknown. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Across the world, military forces were on high alert. People had started to prepare for the worst. Shelters were being built, supplies stockpiled, and governments urged citizens to stay calm. But the fear was palpable. The entire planet was waiting for something they didn't understand. At the United Nations Space Communications Center, Dr. Emily Harper sat in front of her screen, her eyes bloodshot from days of decoding alien signals. The world was in chaos, but she couldn't afford to look away. The aliens were coming, and there had to be a way to fight back. In her gut, Emily felt an unsettling truth. The fleet wasn't just coming to make contact. They were coming to test humanity. But test us for what? Could they be trying to learn something? Or was there a darker reason behind their actions? The alien signals had grown stronger, more deliberate. They weren't just observations. They were deliberate transmissions, like someone trying to tell humanity something. But what? Her fingers trembled as she typed in another sequence. The flashing symbols on her screen shifted again, revealing a pattern she hadn't noticed before. It was a message. "You will not be spared." The words echoed in her mind. Was this a warning? A threat? Or a challenge? Elsewhere in the world, leaders were scrambling. President Rachel Turner convened a global summit to discuss the threat. They had no choice but to assume the worst. The alien fleet was fast approaching, and their technology was far beyond anything humanity could comprehend. But one thing was certain: humanity had to be ready. General Thomas Drake stood at the head of a large war room table, his face hard with determination. The images of the alien fleet, massive ships, far larger than any human construct, had been transmitted by Earth's satellites. They were close now, and their weapons, whatever they were, remained a mystery. "We need a plan," he said, his voice low. "We don't even know what they want. If they're coming to conquer us, we're looking at extinction. If they're here to test us, we'll have to show them we're worth keeping around." President Turner nodded. The room was silent, everyone trying to think of a way out of this impossible situation. "We don't have the luxury of time," she said, her voice cold with the weight of the decision. "We've got one shot at this. I want every nation to collaborate. We need a united front. Military, intelligence, science, everything. We need all of it." Back at the UN Space Center, Emily had managed to break through a major piece of the signal. The symbols weren't just random. They were shifting in a way that resembled language, not math. But this wasn't a language that any human had ever spoken. She needed help. She made a call to Dr. Isaac Warren, a linguistic expert who had spent his career studying ancient languages. His expertise had been called on countless times, but this This was a challenge unlike anything anyone had ever faced. Isaac answered on the third ring. "Emily, what's going on? Are you any closer to cracking the code?" "I think so," Emily replied. "It's not perfect, but I'm getting something. It's almost like they're asking us to respond, to prove something. But I can't make sense of the context." Isaac's voice was tense. "What do you mean, prove something?" "There's a hierarchy in the transmissions, like a challenge. Almost like they want to see if we're worthy of something," Emily explained, pacing. "But I can't understand what that something is. And then there's that message, 'You will not be spared.'" Her voice faltered slightly. Isaac went silent for a moment. "You think they're here to test us, don't you?" Emily paused. "Yes. But for what purpose?" Isaac let out a long breath. "We may not have time to figure that out. They're here, and they're coming faster than we thought." As the days passed, Emily and her team worked around the clock, piecing together the signals. Meanwhile, across the world, governments and military forces prepared for what seemed to be the inevitable. There was no doubt in anyone's mind that humanity was facing an existential crisis. General Drake was meeting with his most trusted officers in a classified military base deep in Nevada. He was studying the satellite images, watching the alien fleet grow larger with every passing hour. "This isn't just a force coming to conquer us. This is something far more calculated," he said, his voice steady but grave. "They've been waiting for us to make a move, but we don't even know where to begin." One of the officers, a young woman named Captain Leela Andrews, spoke up. "Sir, maybe we don't need to fight them directly. Maybe we need to communicate. If they're testing us, then we need to show them we're capable of standing on our own. Prove that we have something worth saving." General Drake looked at her, considering her words. "How do you propose we do that, Captain?" Leela shrugged. "We don't know their methods or their reasoning, but we do know one thing. They think we're primitive. If we want to survive, we need to show them we're not just another species to crush. We have to prove we're worth their time." Back at the UN Space Center, Emily's breakthrough finally came. She had cracked a key part of the alien transmission, a word that repeated over and over: challenge. It was clear now. The aliens weren't coming to wipe out humanity. They were testing them, watching to see how they would respond. Could humanity rise to the challenge? Emily felt a mix of dread and hope. The alien fleet was now in Earth's orbit. The countdown had begun. But she realized something. The aliens weren't just invaders. They were observers. They were watching. And humanity was about to face the most important test in its history. As the alien ships loomed over Earth, every nation braced for the unknown. Fear and uncertainty gripped the planet, but one thing was clear. Humanity's future depended on how it responded to this challenge. Would they rise to the occasion, or would they be crushed under the weight of the unknown? The test had begun, and there was no turning back. The first strike. The air was thick with uncertainty. The alien fleet had entered Earth's atmosphere, and with each passing hour, the world held its breath. The vast ships loomed high in the sky, casting long, shadowy silhouettes over cities, oceans, and plains. They were impossible to ignore. Cities had gone quiet, their streets eerily empty. People huddled in their homes, glued to their televisions, watching the alien ships through the lenses of satellite feeds and drone cameras. The world was no longer just afraid, it was paralyzed by the unknown. But in the midst of the panic, a decision had been made. Humanity would not go quietly. Humanity would fight. General Thomas Drake sat at the head of the global military coalition, his face as hard as the steel beneath his boots. The enemy was at their doorstep, but they had no intention of letting Earth fall without a fight. While the alien ships remained silent in the sky, their massive, ominous forms broadcasted an unspoken message. "We are here. What will you do?" The military had spent the last few days preparing. Earth's defenses, mostly old systems, weapons, and strategies meant to protect against a traditional invasion, had been hastily upgraded and adapted. But the truth was, they were woefully unprepared for an enemy of this scale. "We can't waste time," General Drake said, his voice tight with determination. "They've made their move. It's time we show them we're not to be underestimated." In a hidden underground base, Dr. Emily Harper stood before a wall of glowing screens, her eyes scanning every piece of data as it poured in. The alien fleet remained silent for now, but the longer they waited, the greater the uncertainty became. Emily had been working non-stop, collaborating with military strategists, scientists, and engineers to find a way to counter whatever the aliens were planning. But the truth was becoming clear. Earth's technology was nothing compared to the aliens. Even the most powerful weapon systems the world had could barely scratch the surface of the alien ships. "Can't we fight them with our weapons?" Dr. Isaac Warren, who had been studying the alien transmissions, asked, his voice full of concern. Emily shook her head. "It's not about firepower. Whatever they're planning, it's more than just an attack. They're studying us. They want to see what we do. And right now, our best bet is to show them we can think beyond brute force." She hesitated, then added, "There's something in their transmissions. I believe they're trying to communicate with us. If we can decipher their exact intentions, we might be able to form an alliance, something beyond just surviving this." Isaac nodded. "Or we might be walking into a trap. We don't know if they want peace, war, or something else entirely." As the hours passed, the first sign of action came, an unspoken message from the aliens. The massive ships slowly began to reposition, their movements deliberate and slow. A low hum vibrated through the air as a beam of bright blue light shot down from one of the alien ships. It hit the ocean, creating a massive, glowing hole in the water. A wave of energy rippled outward, flattening anything in its path. A second beam followed, targeting a military base in the desert. The ground shook, and the base disintegrated into a plume of smoke and fire. The message was clear. The world was watching, but for the first time since the fleet had arrived, a deep silence filled the air. The aliens were waiting for a response. "We've got to strike first, or they'll wipe us out one by one," General Drake said, gripping the armrest of his chair as he stared at the live feed. "They're testing us. If we don't act now, we'll be wiped off the map." Emily's heart pounded. The humans were reacting out of fear, exactly what the aliens had anticipated, but there was still a chance they could use this moment to their advantage. "There's something we don't understand," Emily muttered under her breath. "We're thinking of this as a battle, attack or retreat. But what if it's something more? What if they're testing us to see if we're smart enough to think outside the box? What if our first move should be communication?" General Drake's eyes narrowed. "I'm not going to trust a species that just fired on our bases. If they wanted peace, they would have shown it by now." Meanwhile, deep inside a command center in Moscow, Captain Leela Andrews stood before a series of digital maps, trying to track the alien ships. She couldn't shake the feeling that Earth was being led into a trap. The attack on the military base had been a calculated move, showing humanity that resistance would be crushed. But what if the aliens wanted more than just destruction? "Sir," Layla said to her commanding officer, "I think they're trying to provoke us. Push us into making a move they can predict. What if this isn't just about force, but strategy?" Her commanding officer, Colonel Viktor Kirov, turned to her, eyebrows furrowed. "Strategy. We've never faced anything like this before. We can't predict them." Leela met his gaze. "We don't need to predict them. We need to think like them. They're challenging us, testing us, to see if we can make a strategic decision. If we launch everything we've got in a panic, we'll lose before we even fight." Back at the UN Space Center, Emily was still piecing together the alien transmission. The message was becoming clearer. They weren't here to destroy. They were here to test humanity's ability to survive, adapt, and think. The problem was, Emily wasn't sure how to respond. She stared at the screen, her mind racing. How do we show them we're capable? What could Earth possibly do to prove it was worth sparing? Suddenly, a thought struck her. A possibility, something completely unexpected. Emily wasn't sure it would work, but it was the only chance humanity had. "Isaac," she called, her voice urgent. "I think I figured it out. We need to send them a message, not a weapon. We need to prove our intelligence, our ability to innovate." Isaac was silent for a moment. "What do you suggest?" "We challenge them," Emily said with a sudden sharp clarity. "We show them we can adapt. Let's use their test against them. We're not just reacting. We're evolving. We'll send them a signal back, something they'll never expect." Isaac blinked. "And what will that message be?" Emily smiled grimly. "We'll let them know we're not just survivors. We're challengers." The time for waiting was over. Humanity had made its first move. The message was clear. Earth was not going to be intimidated, and no matter how many ships hovered above, no matter how powerful their weapons were, Earth's response was about to be something the aliens could never predict. The countdown had begun, and the true test was finally underway. Secrets revealed. The night was still, but the air was thick with anticipation. The world waited on the edge of a knife as the alien fleet loomed above Earth. The unspoken truth hung heavy in the atmosphere. Humanity had made its move, but now the aliens were watching, waiting. Their ships hovered silently, blocking out the stars, casting their long shadows over every corner of the planet. No one dared to make a sound. In the underground command center, Dr. Emily Harper stared at the blinking lights of the screens before her, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. The message had been sent. Earth had answered the challenge, responded with intelligence, with strategy. And now, the next question was, would it be enough? For the first time in days, Emily felt a sliver of hope. The aliens had shown their power, their vast technology, and their indifference to human life. But in their silence, Emily saw something else, a crack in their invincibility. The transmissions had continued, but now they were different. The pattern was changing, becoming more complex. And for the first time, Emily could sense something else, something deeper. "Emily, come look at this." Isaac's voice crackled over the intercom. His tone was urgent, but there was an edge of excitement to it. "You need to see this." Emily rushed over to his station. Isaac was staring at a new sequence of symbols on his screen. This was no longer just a random flow of data. The pattern was intentional, almost like a language, but not one they had ever encountered. "Are we breaking through?" Emily asked, her heart racing. "I think we are," Isaac replied. "Look here, there's a shift in the structure. These symbols, these aren't just codes. They seem to correspond to human concepts. Concepts of challenge, evolution, survival. But there's something more. It's almost like they're revealing their true intentions." Emily leaned in, eyes scanning the glowing screen. The symbols flickered as if alive, shifting and changing in real time. Then one symbol stood out above the rest, a perfect circle with a jagged line running through it. It was a symbol of balance, of unity and struggle. Emily's pulse quickened as the implications began to settle in. This is an invitation," she said slowly, the words forming as if they were just coming to her. "The aliens aren't here to wipe us out. They're not even just testing us. They're offering us something, a chance." Across the globe, the realization was beginning to spread like wildfire. The aliens weren't here to destroy. They were here to offer a chance for humanity to prove itself, to evolve, to join something greater. In the halls of government, leaders gathered again, this time with a new understanding. The fleet hadn't responded with force, but with curiosity. They were watching humanity's reaction. President Rachel Turner stood in front of a large screen, her eyes focused on the transmissions coming in from the command centers. "We've been reacting with fear," she said, her voice steady. "But what if this is a test of our collective intelligence? They've given us a chance to prove we're worthy of something. What that something is, we don't know. But they've shown us something we didn't expect. There's still time." General Thomas Drake paced behind her. "If we keep playing this game of survival, we may lose more than just territory. If this is a chance, then we need to approach it carefully. This isn't just a military response anymore, it's a strategic response. Meanwhile, in Moscow, Captain Leela Andrews stood before a new set of data, her mind racing with the same thoughts. She was the first to realize something no one else had considered. The alien ships had fired upon military targets, but only when they felt threatened. The sudden, powerful beams weren't meant to destroy, they were meant to demonstrate a point. It wasn't about power, it was about choice. "We're thinking about this all wrong," Leela muttered, staring at the glowing screen. "We're looking at them as invaders, as enemies. But what if they're mentors? What if they're trying to lead us to something greater?" Her superior, Colonel Viktor Kirov, looked at her with raised eyebrows. "Mentors? You mean to say that these alien ships are here to teach us something? After everything we've seen, that's your conclusion?" Leela met his gaze, her voice firm. "Yes, think about it. They don't need to destroy us. They've shown us they can do that anytime they want. They could have wiped out entire cities by now. But they haven't. They're waiting for us to choose. They want us to show them that we're more than just a species of survivalists. We need to show them that we can learn. We can grow." Back in the command center, Emily and Isaac worked quickly, continuing to decode the alien signals. The truth was becoming clearer by the second. The aliens were offering humanity a choice, but it wasn't a simple one. This wasn't just about survival, it was about evolution. The aliens had observed humanity for thousands of years, and now they were extending an invitation. "Emily," Isaac said, his voice trembling, "I think I know what they want from us." Emily turned to him, her mind spinning. "What do you mean?" "They've been watching us for thousands of years. The signals, they're asking for something. The aliens want us to evolve beyond the limitations of our old ways. They're offering us the chance to join them in the next stage of existence. But we have to prove that we're willing to change. They're not going to take us in if we don't show them that we're ready." Emily stood frozen for a moment. "But how can we prove that? What do we have to do?" Isaac smiled grimly. "We need to show them that we're capable of transforming. We can't keep thinking of this as a war, Emily. It's not about firepower, it's about adaptation." The message was clear. Earth was at a crossroads. The alien fleet, while a show of strength, was also a test, one that could either lead to destruction or to something greater. The question remained, was humanity ready to embrace change? Or would fear and pride hold them back from an opportunity they might never get again? The test was about to begin in earnest, and Earth's response would decide its fate. The choice. The atmosphere on Earth had changed overnight. The fear that once gripped the world was now tempered with confusion and curiosity. Governments, military leaders, and scientists scrambled to understand the alien message. The fleet was still in orbit, a looming presence in the sky, but it no longer felt like an imminent threat. It felt like a challenge to humanity's very essence. The word was out. The aliens weren't here to destroy Earth. They weren't here to conquer or enslave humanity. They were here to test humanity's potential. Dr. Emily Harper sat in the UN Space Center, staring at the blinking lights on her screen. She had spent countless hours decoding the transmissions, but the real puzzle now lay in humanity's response. The alien fleet had shown them their power. They had made their presence known. But what did the aliens want next? Isaac Warren, standing next to her, broke the silence. The message is clear. They're offering humanity a choice. We can prove we're worthy, evolve, and join them, or we can remain stuck in the past, fighting for survival. Emily sighed, her mind racing. But how do we show them we're worthy? We don't have their technology. We don't even know what they're looking for. How do we prove we're capable of evolution? Isaac paused, then spoke slowly. Maybe it's not about technology or firepower. Maybe it's about how we think, our ability to adapt, our capacity to rise above our instincts and choose cooperation over destruction. The world was divided. While some governments and military factions wanted to strike first, to fight back, Others saw the alien offer for what it was, a chance to evolve, to reach new heights. President Rachel Turner had convened a global summit, calling together the leaders of every nation to decide humanity's course. "History will judge us for this," she said to the assembly, her voice steady. "We stand at a crossroads. We can choose to fight. We can throw everything we have at them, but if they've been watching us for thousands of years, we have to ask ourselves, what have we shown them? What will we show them now?" General Thomas Drake, standing by the large holographic map of Earth, frowned. "You're suggesting we surrender? That we ask them to take us under their wing? They came here. They attacked us. This isn't a diplomatic discussion, Rachel. They don't want peace. They want a test, and I'm not ready to roll over." President Turner turned to face him. "General, we've fought battles our whole existence, but we've never faced anything like this. They're not looking for war. They're looking for something else. And if we fight, we risk losing more than just territory. We could lose our future. But if we prove we can rise above our fear, above our instinct to fight back, if we prove we can change, maybe we can join them in the next step of evolution." Drake was silent for a moment, his expression dark. "And what if they just wipe us out after we show them we're willing to change? What if it's all a trick?" President Turner met his gaze. "That's the risk, General, but it's the only one we have. We either rise to the challenge or we perish as we are." Meanwhile, in the hidden command center in Moscow, Captain Leela Andrews was deep in thought. The same question that plagued the rest of humanity also tormented her. What choice did they make? Leela had spent hours reviewing every scrap of data they had on the alien fleet. Their movements, their technology, their strategy. They were beyond human comprehension, and yet they seemed to be waiting for something. She had come to one conclusion. The aliens didn't want to conquer humanity. They wanted to see if humans could rise above their primal instincts and evolve. "We need to show them that we can think differently," Leela murmured to herself, running her fingers over the data projections. "We can't fight them on their terms. We have to show them that we can grow beyond this." Her commander, Colonel Viktor Kirov, entered the room, his face grave. "Captain, I've been reviewing the intel. We're prepared to strike when given the order. But I need to know, do you believe we should take the chance? This evolution they're asking us for, do you think we can really prove it?" Leela looked up at him, her eyes intense. "It's not about what I believe, sir. It's about what humanity believes. We've spent centuries fighting wars, killing each other over resources, power, and territory. This is our moment. The aliens aren't giving us a way out. They're giving us a chance to evolve, to prove that we can rise above all that." Kirov was silent for a moment. "And if we fail?" Leela shook her head. "Then we will have failed as a species, and nothing we do will matter. But if we succeed," she paused, a spark of hope in her eyes. "If we succeed, we take the first step into a future we can't even begin to imagine." Back at the UN Space Center, the world watched as humanity prepared to make its choice. The countdown was ticking, and every second felt heavier than the last. Earth had to respond to the alien fleet. They had to decide, would they fight, or would they embrace the challenge and attempt to evolve? Emily sat in her chair, hands clenched, heart racing. The world was watching. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she prepared to send a final message back to the fleet. The symbol, the perfect circle, the jagged line, was still in the heart of the United States. President Rachel Turner stood before a massive digital map of Earth, her eyes scanning the military options available. But for the first time in days, she didn't feel the weight of panic pressing on her chest. The alien ships weren't there to crush humanity. They were there to offer it a chance. "It's more than just power," President Turner said, as she addressed her advisors. "It's about us proving we're ready to adapt. But how do we show them we're capable? How do we show them we're worthy of this evolution they've offered?" General Thomas Drake, standing near the table, crossed his arms. His face was a mask of uncertainty, but there was something else in his eyes, an understanding of the gravity of the moment. We can't just play defense. If they're challenging us, it's not enough to wait for them to make the next move. We need to show them that we can think beyond our weapons. We need to prove we can think beyond survival. We're not ready for their level of technology, General, one of the advisors said, his voice filled with doubt. We don't even understand how they communicate. Drake's gaze sharpened. Then we learn. The whole world is watching, and we have one chance to prove ourselves. Let's show them that humanity is more than just a species of soldiers and survivors. We are thinkers, innovators. Meanwhile, in Moscow, Captain Leela Andrews was pacing, her mind racing. The message from the alien fleet was becoming clearer by the hour. It wasn't about weapons, or military tactics, or even technological superiority. It was about proving humanity's adaptability, its ability to rise to the challenge. Leela sat down at her station, her fingers flying over the keyboard. The encrypted transmissions were growing more complex, but they were no longer indecipherable. Something clicked. The geometric pattern, the spiraling design, it wasn't just a random sequence. It was a test of logic, of human ingenuity. We can crack this, Leela muttered to herself. We just need to think differently. Her commander, Colonel Viktor Kirov, entered the room, his eyes wary but focused. Captain, what's going on? What have you found? Leela smiled, but it was more of a grimace than a look of triumph. I think I understand the test. They're asking us to prove that we're capable of intellectual evolution, not brute force. They've given us a challenge, a puzzle. We need to solve it, and fast. Kirov's eyes widened in realization. So this is it? The moment we either prove ourselves or fail. Leela nodded. Yes. If we solve this, if we show them that we're capable of thinking in ways they never expected, maybe, just maybe, we'll prove that humanity can evolve. But if we fail, we don't even want to imagine what happens then. Back at the UN Space Center, Emily and Isaac continued their work, the pressure mounting with each passing minute. The alien fleet had done something unprecedented. They had triggered a transformation in human thought. Where once there had been fear, now there was hope. Humanity was no longer just responding to the aliens. They were actively participating in a test that could determine their future. Emily's eyes were fixed on the screen, scanning the patterns as they changed. I think we're close. The geometry, it's a blueprint. It's guiding us. It's asking us to think outside the box. It's not just about breaking the code. It's about seeing things differently. Isaac's voice shook with excitement. Do you think they're teaching us something? Using this puzzle to show us that there's more than one way to solve a problem? Emily nodded slowly. That's exactly it. It's not about brute force. It's about perspective. They want us to change the way we approach problems, to look beyond what we know, to grow. She took a deep breath. This is it. If we solve this, if we show them that we're capable of thinking in new ways, then we'll prove we can evolve. We'll prove humanity is ready. The final pieces of the puzzle fell into place. As the last symbol aligned on the screen, a ripple of energy passed through the room. The lights flickered once again, but this time there was no doubt. The message had been decoded. But before Emily could react, the entire room was flooded with a blinding light. It was as though the alien fleet had responded, no longer through symbols, but through pure energy. And then, as quickly as it had appeared, the light dimmed. The screens returned to normal, but now there was something new. A single phrase appeared, glowing on the main console. You are ready. Earth had passed the test. They had solved the puzzle. They had proven their adaptability, their intelligence, their willingness to evolve. The alien fleet, which had once seemed so menacing, was now a symbol of opportunity, a new chapter in humanity's future. But the question remained, what came next? Humanity had proven it could rise to the challenge, but would the aliens now help them take the next step? Or had they merely opened a door to something even greater, a door that once entered could never be closed again? The unseen horizon, the world stood still. The words "you are ready" blinked on the screens like an affirmation from the cosmos. Earth had passed the trial. Humanity had solved the puzzle, proved its worth, and evolved in ways it had never imagined possible. There was no overwhelming victory, no fireworks or celebrations, just an eerie stillness, as if the planet was waiting for the next step. In the UN Space Center, Dr. Emily Harper stood motionless, her eyes glued to the console. Her mind was spinning, trying to comprehend what had just happened. They had done it. The aliens had seen humanity's potential, its adaptability, its willingness to change. But what now? Isaac Warren, standing beside her, breathed out slowly, his hands trembling. "We did it, Emily. We actually did it." But Emily's expression remained focused. "It's not over. The real test starts now." Above Earth, the alien fleet had remained eerily silent. The massive ships, which had once radiated with an overwhelming, menacing energy, now hummed with an enigmatic calm. The vast shadows of their hulls stretched across the planet, but they weren't threatening. They were watching, waiting. In the command center of Moscow, Captain Leela Andrews and Colonel Viktor Kirov exchanged a glance. Both had witnessed the evolution of human thought and action in real time, but now, like the rest of the world, they were faced with the unknown. Leela spoke first, her voice steady but filled with uncertainty. "The puzzle was only the first step. We solved it. But what did we prove? What happens now?" Kirov's gaze narrowed, reflecting the weight of the moment. "We proved we can think. We can adapt. But the question remains, what do the aliens expect from us now? We've crossed into a new phase of this challenge, but we don't know what it means." Lula's eyes flickered back to the screens, watching the alien ships as they remained perfectly still in the sky. They didn't just give us the answer. They gave us the tools to find the answer ourselves. This is about more than just us proving we can adapt. It's about showing them that we can keep evolving. We're not just answering their questions, we're beginning to ask our own. Across the globe, world leaders and scientists were grappling with the same questions. What had this test really been about? And more importantly, what did the aliens want from humanity now that the challenge had been accepted? The decision wasn't simply to survive. It was about learning, growing, and evolving. In Washington, President Rachel Turner stood before the world, broadcasting a message to every nation, to every leader. The tension in her voice was palpable, but there was a newfound confidence as she addressed the global audience. Humanity has faced its greatest test, and we have risen to meet it. But this is not the end. This is just the beginning. The aliens have shown us that we are capable of more than survival. We are capable of growth. They have given us an invitation to something greater. It is up to us now to decide what we do with this opportunity. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. The future is no longer defined by the wars we fought, the borders we drew, or the divisions we created. The future is about evolution. It is about taking the next step, together. We must choose. Do we continue on our own path, forever divided, or do we step into the unknown as one species to see what lies beyond? In the quiet of the command center, Emily finally broke her silence. "Isaac, look." The patterns on the screen shifted again. It wasn't another puzzle. This time it was something entirely different. A new set of symbols began to emerge, more abstract, more fluid. The shapes pulsed with an almost organic rhythm, and slowly the alien message became clear. It was an invitation. "You have proven yourself worthy. Now, come forth." The symbols continued, this time forming into a new structure, something resembling a gate, a portal. Emily leaned forward. "This is it. They want us to join them, to evolve with them, but we can't do it alone. We have to come together, humanity united." Isaac's voice was barely above a whisper. "It's a test of unity, not just our intelligence, but our ability to work together. They're giving us the chance to join them, to evolve as a species. But we have to prove that we can overcome our divisions, our fears, our need for control. Emily nodded slowly. The aliens have shown us the way, but we have to walk through it together. As the days passed, the global conversation shifted. Humanity, for the first time in centuries, began to talk about unity, not as a distant dream, but as a real, achievable goal. Leaders set aside their differences. Rival nations opened communications channels. The message from the alien fleet had cracked open a door, but it was up to humanity to step through it. As the final hours of the countdown approached, Emily found herself standing on the rooftop of the Space Center, gazing up at the massive alien ships that loomed like silent sentinels above the world. The choice was clear now. Humanity could either continue on its old path, divided and fearful, or it could embrace the unknown and step into a new era together. She wasn't sure what awaited on the other side of that gate. No one was. But what she did know was this: humanity had earned this opportunity. It was no longer about survival. It was about evolution. And evolution required change that would come not from the individual, but from the collective. The countdown to the final moment began, the ticking of the clock a drumbeat that echoed through every nation. The world held its breath. The alien ships began to move, slowly at first, as though testing humanity's resolve. Then, in unison, they shifted their positions, aligning themselves to form a massive, ethereal gateway in the sky. The symbols on Earth's screens pulsed, matching the rhythm of the ships. The time had come. Would humanity take that final step? Would they reach for the stars, or would they turn away, afraid of what they might find? As the last seconds ticked away, Emily whispered to herself, "This is our moment." The world held its breath. The final step had been taken. Through the gate, humanity would move, not as isolated fragments, but as a united force. The trial was over, but the journey was just beginning.